It's so kind of you to do this with us today.
Very good. Yeah, very happy to talk with you.
You've got a really interesting background, and we know you've been involved with Doc Martin for a really long time now. Could you just tell us a little bit about your role with the programme?
I'm called the executive producer on Doc Martin, and I've been involved right from the concept. In fact, it was my idea for him to be a surgeon who couldn't stand the smell of blood and burning flesh and moved down to Cornwall, because it came from a film that I did quite some time ago in 2000 called Saving Grace, where I met Martin Clunes. He played a very different kind of doctor in Saving Grace, but we got on very well. He loved the character, and so we went off with Sky at that point, and with the idea that we were going to make 2 made-for-TV movies a year for a few years. And we made the first 2 based on his character, and then Sky decided that they didn't want to finance anything anymore. They just wanted to buy programs in, right? So we took it over to ITV, or Martin had a very strong relationship at that time, and by this time I was producing this with Martin's wife, Philippa Braithwaite, who is a great producer. She produced a wonderful movie called Sliding Doors, so we took it over to ITV, who said, they'd love to have it. They want the same name, the same character, the same location, everything the same, but could we have a different character for it, to differentiate it? Which is when, luckily, I came up with this idea of a doctor who couldn't stand the smell of blood and burning flesh and moved standing it. So right from the very beginning, I've been working on this, and one of the main things that I do on it is developing storylines and the arcs for the series. That's working incredibly closely with the writers and develop. We come up with, basically the way it works is we come up with a general arc for the characters of Martin and Louisa, his wife, where they begin and where they end up. And then we think about the other characters, then we think about the medical stories, and then the stories of the week, and it becomes incredibly confusing. But basically, we try and have three storylines per episode, an A, B, and C storyline. And when those storylines, when it really sings, I think, is when all of these storylines within one episode interweave and they connect with each other. And then, of course, there is the overarching storyline of Martin and Louisa, or the main characters' journeys as well. So that's what I do. That's the main thing. Apart from, we've been going so long now. I think we've been going for about 14 or 15 years, and it's extraordinary. So it's a very rare phenomenon, and to keep it fresh, to work with the writers, and the financing of it is fairly solid now, and because the independent world of filmmaking is torturous, to say the least. But this is very well established, which leaves us to basically get on with making the very best stories that we can, the very best series that we can. So as I say, I sit down with the writers, with Philippa, and we start discussing how each series will be, and then start working very closely with the writers on those series, on each storyline. But we do spend an incredible amount of time developing up the script, because basically almost as soon as we finish one season, we then take a year out to start working on the storylines, to start working on the arcs, the characters and everything for the next season. And it takes us 18 months to do that. So people say, oh, you finished the series, oh, you've got nothing to do until the next one now. Well, actually, my real work starts as soon as, basically as soon as we finish, because is coming up with the next one. Because once all the scripts are done, we hand them over to this wonderful production team that we have, and the actors, and they make it. But to get the script, because unless you've got a script, unless you've got storylines, unless you've got things like that, you're not going anywhere. One famous film director once said the three most important things in filmmaking: the script, and the script. If you haven't got that, if you haven't got good storylines, you're not going anywhere. So each episode probably goes through somewhere. We start with a treatment, which is basically 10 to 14 pages long, which outlines the episode and what's going to happen in that. And we normally do anywhere between 5 and 12 drafts of that, before the writer then goes to script. And we can then do on that script up to 20 drafts, sometimes more, to get it right.
So this storyline has been in the pipeline and being developed for quite a long time now.
Yes, because it was extraordinary. Because how I got in touch with some Petrocs was kind of interesting in itself. It was one of these kind of meant to be kind of things, I think, because I'd been, I moved down with my family. I'm very sort of Cornwall. I've spent a lot of my life in Cornwall, and most of my career has been spent making films in Cornwall. But we moved down with our children. My wife and I moved down with our children about 3 or 4 years ago. When we first moved to Truro, and I remember walking by this park. But we used to take the dog, our dog, for a walk around there, with the kids and play around there. And I remember first of all thinking, oh, that's an interesting place to camp. I guess, people are getting, having a little bit of a holiday and, but close to Truro and the beaches and everything. And then I realised that they weren't camping for fun. They were homeless. That it was, because in London, it seems to be a lot more in your face. You see people in doorways and campsite, but so many people here, or the homeless people, seem to be, they've got their little tents or whatever, and they're out there, and you think, oh, well, that's better, but obviously it's not. And then realising and talking with Jackie and finding out more about it and about homelessness and about the terrible problem, that there is in Cornwall, and trying to find a way of, sort of like trying to make people a bit more aware of it, I think. So, that was basically the inspiration of being made aware by some Petrocs of the problem of homelessness in Cornwall, and I'm thinking, well, what can one do and how can one help? And quite honestly, it's also a very strong storyline for us, I think, as well. I think one of the things that that I found really extraordinary about this is that basically everyone's only 2 paychecks away from the street, as it were. And the person that is homeless is not necessarily it's such a quick accident to happen. It can happen so quickly, and to people that you just think it would never happen to. It can happen to a millionaire. It can happen to anybody. You can just make a couple of decisions that don't go your way, and suddenly you find yourself out on the street with no one around to help you. It's an extraordinary situation. Some time ago, when I was, I worked as an actor for a long time, and I was at the National Theatre, and I was walking with this girl who was playing the lead in this play at the National Theatre. It's this huge deal, and we were walking up past the National on the other side of the river in London, and just going underneath Waterloo Bridge to go back to the theatre. We saw the name of the play up in lights, and it was all so exciting and everything. And just as we were going under the bridge, we heard this voice going, "Kelly?" And this actress turned around and went, "Dad?" And there was her dad underneath the arches in Waterloo Bridge, homeless, while she was in the theatre across the road. And I always remember as well just thinking it was so extraordinary because obviously she was very, very upset by it, but didn't know what to do about it. And it was, I mean, she was very distressed about it. And I think that thing that, it can be your brother, it can be your sister, it can be your best friend, it can be whoever whose home is out there. And it's so easy to walk past these people. And, how can we not walk past? How can we help? What can we do to help these people who could so easily be us out there? That was really, why we wanted to do this episode. And when I talked to Philippa about it, when I talked to, the writers about it, they were all very quickly on board to try and make this work. And it was a really, really difficult one to make work. And I hope we have. I think it really does work in the episode. But we didn't want in any way to say that there's a sticking plaster moment to this, because obviously on the episodes we had, we made them in pretty quickly. We have 2 weeks to film it. They last 46 minutes, and we've got other storylines going on and this going on. But this was our A storyline in it. This is the major storyline. And how do we tell a story that is, very delicate? It's a very delicate subject. And we don't want in any way to say, to be trite about it, to just whisk something out and go, there we go, and everything. So, Doc Martin comes along and solves all the problems and it's all okay. We know that's not true. And Martin was also very keen for that not to happen as well. But I hope what we've done in this is show that the people that you least expect it to happen to, it can happen to. It can be incredibly confusing, very, very depressing. And compassion for people in that situation is something that's very important, I think. And, small gestures can mean an enormous amount. So hopefully we get that across in this show. In the episode.
Wow, Mark, that is just so unbelievable, and to use that platform to raise awareness.
The wonderful thing about Doc Martin is that it does have a very, very large reach. We've just got the figures back for our first episode, and 6.5 million people watched it. We get a big audience, and obviously as well, this isn't, it's so. I feel, great to try and bring awareness to this subject in Cornwall. But also, this show goes all around, it's shown in 200 countries around the world. And luckily it's very, very popular in places like Australia and America. So hopefully, one can help, do the same a little bit there. If one just makes people a little bit more aware of a situation, that would be brilliant. Absolutely wonderful, on this situation, which is so sad, isn't it? I mean, it's so sad that, in this day and age, when, to think that people can fall so quickly and so fast, and, the fact that St. Petrocs is, a bit of a safety net to help people, is a wonderful thing, and, should be supported enormously, I think.
Thank you, Mark. That is just so amazing. I mean, I can't quite get my head around that reach of how worldwide and international that actually goes.
I mean, it is everywhere. And then it's, whether it's Russia, France, Germany, Spain, Asia, I mean, it is everywhere. It is everywhere. So,
Yes.
Yeah. So, hopefully, you never know. A bit more help, would be great.
Well, it sounds like a lot more awareness, not a little bit more awareness. It's absolutely fantastic. It'll be so interesting to know how this story touches people and to hear feedback. And the fact we're speaking to you and Danny today and able to extend that here in Cornwall.
Well, I think as well, it was, I felt really, really lucky to get Danny to do this as well. because Danny is a very, very old friend of mine. We've known each other for a long time, but we've never worked together on anything before. And when we first started working on this part, I didn't immediately think, oh, this is going to be for Danny, this is going to be great for Danny. And Danny, recently, over the last, quite a few years, has become, quite the actor in Hollywood. He's very highly regarded, very well known, and has made some huge movies and played opposite everybody from Leonardo DiCaprio to Nicole Kidman to, just name them. He's done it. He's got a very, very high profile, and he's a very, very good actor. So, I would also never rely on friendship, to get him, for him to say, yes, I'd like to do this. So the fact that when he read the part, I got it over to him. As I said, he's never worked before or anything. I just said, look, would you, by any chance, have a look at this? And he read it, and he called me back straight away and just said, look, I'd love to do this. I really, really want to do this. And then the nightmare of working it all out with his agents and managers and things like that, because, he's been filming this huge thing with Kevin Costner, and then he's in the next season of another huge thing in America, and another film and everything. And so to try and get him over here for that period of time for him to do it was a little tricky, but we worked it out, and I think he's wonderful in it. He brings really, he's a very substantial, significant actor, so to get him to do it as well was the icing on the cake, absolutely icing on the cake. He had an absolutely fabulous time doing it. He got on really well with everybody, and Martin and him, they had a grand time. We were just so lucky, as I say, with the whole production team, with the whole, the way the story ended up working. I think, I was really happy because it is a really tricky subject, and it is something that one needs to be very, delicate with, and not come up with some, as I say, some easy answers, because I can see, and hearing people like Steve and Jackie and whatever talk about this, and other people talk about it, it's clearly an incredibly complex problem, situation that people get, and I imagine very few situations are the same for these people, the individuals. But I've always very much believed in the individual, so if one can help people, then that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, we know you've got a very big heart and you care so much, and it just means such a lot to us. Thank you so much.
Not at all. A pleasure. Lovely to talk to you.